Good morning, brethren, and welcome to our bi-weekly program entitled The Word in a Glimpse, which is broadcast live on Facebook every Monday and every Wednesday at 8 a.m. West Africa time, which is 7 a.m. GMT. Today is the 18th of September, 2023, and our topic this morning is entitled God commands you to be fruitful. God commands you to be fruitful. Part 1. God commands you to be fruitful. Part 1. Let's read Genesis chapter 1. Genesis chapter 1, verses 27 and 28. Genesis chapter 1, verses 27 and 28. Let's read. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. Then God blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful and multiply. Fill the earth and subdue it. Have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves on the earth. Let's read again. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. Then God blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful and multiply. Fill the earth and subdue it. Have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves on the earth. You see, God created man in his own image, according to his own likeness. Thus, at creation, man was like God. He was exactly like God. But before God created man, God first created the heavens and the earth, and all that is in the heavens and on the earth, which means that God is fruitful. God bore much fruit. He produced the heavens. He produced the earth. He produced the light. He produced the firmament. He produced the seas. He produced the plants. He produced grass. He produced fruits. He produced birds. He produced animals. He produced fish. He produced the sun. He produced the moon. He produced the stars, and so on. So God actually was and is fruitful. Thus, since God has made man in his own image, in the image of God, and in the likeness of God, man too had to be fruitful like God. This is why the very first command that God gave man was to be fruitful. You see, after the soft words of blessing that God pronounced, that God spoke, the other very first words that man heard were words of command. And these words of command were spoken by God himself, of course. Thus, after God finished blessing man, the first words that man heard were, be fruitful. This shows the importance of this command to be fruitful. Be fruitful were then the very first words that were ever addressed directly to man. These were God's very first words to man. Be fruitful. God didn't say, I want you to be fruitful. God didn't say, you'd better be fruitful. God didn't say, may you be fruitful. No, God said, be fruitful. It's a command. Be fruitful. It's imperative. It's a command. Be fruitful. So being fruitful is not optional. Being fruitful is mandatory. Being fruitful is compulsory. So being fruitful is God's command. You see, being fruitful, what does it actually mean? Being fruitful means being able to bear fruit. Huh? It means bearing fruit which has a very large scope of meanings. And to bear fruit has a very large scope of meaning. In fact, generally speaking, and if we want to put it in a nutshell, being fruitful means to do something positive in one's life, to be something positive, to do something positive in your life, or to produce something positive. This is what it means to be fruitful. So at creation, God has put in man the seed of fruitfulness. He has put in man the seed of productivity. Thus, every man has the potential of fruitfulness because God has sown the seed of fruitfulness in every man, ever before our birth. So, ever before you were born, God already sowed the fruit of the seed of fruitfulness in you. So you have that potential to be fruitful, and you have to be fruitful because it's God's command to you. So being fruitful, or otherwise bearing fruit, concerns all the aspects of our lives. When God said, be fruitful, He didn't mean any particular aspect of man's life. He didn't say, be fruitful in this area, be fruitful in that aspect. He just said, be fruitful. So this suggests that God meant all the aspects of man's life, all the areas of man's life. So to be fruitful concerns all the areas of our lives. We have to be fruitful in all the areas of our lives. Let's now read John chapter 15. We're going to read two verses. We're first going to read verse 8, then after that we read verse 5. John chapter 15. John chapter 15. Let's first read verse 8. John chapter 15, verse 8 says, by this my Father is glorified, that you bear much fruit, so you will be my disciples. By this my Father is glorified. By what? That you bear much fruit. And when you bear much fruit, what is the consequence of it? You will be my disciples. Now, let's read verse 2 of the same chapter, John chapter 15, verse 2. Every branch in me that does not bear fruit, he takes away. He is God. Every branch in me is Jesus Christ. Every branch in me that does not bear fruit, he takes away. And every branch that bears fruit, he prunes, that it may bear more fruit. Let's read again. Every branch in me that does not bear fruit, he takes away. And every branch that bears fruit, he prunes, that it may bear more fruit. Okay. Now, You see, God expects each of us, each of his children, to glorify him. We must do everything for the glory of God to be manifested, for God to be glorified in our lives, in whatever we do, in whatever we say, in whatever we are. We must seek the glory of God. So this is what we see in John chapter 15, verse 8. Oh, I'm sorry. I read after verse 8, I read verse 5 instead of reading I read verse 2 instead of reading verse 5. Let me come back. No, verse 5 says, I am the vine, you are the branches. He who abides in me and I in him bears much fruit, for without me you can do nothing. This is what verse 5 says. So forget first about verse 2. We'll come back to it later on. If not today, even tomorrow. But for now, no, not tomorrow, but on Wednesday. But for now, let's read verse 5. So there are two verses that we have to read. John chapter 15, verse 8, and John chapter 15, verse 5. Verse 8 says, by this my Father is glorified, that you bear much fruit, so you will be my disciples. And verse 5 says, I am the vine, you are the branches. He who abides in me and I in him bears much fruit, for without me you can do nothing. So you see, as I was saying, God expects each of his children to glorify him, to give him glory. In whatever he does, in whatever he is, he has to give glory to God. And what gives God glory in our lives is when we bear much fruit, or if you like, when we are fruitful. So being fruitful gives glory to God. And being fruitful means obeying God's initial command when God said in the Garden of Eden, be fruitful. So when we are fruitful, this means that we have accepted to obey the command that God gave man in the Garden of Eden. And when we obey this command, be fruitful, we release the glory of God all around us. We release the glory of God. We show the glory of God. Then we also testify by this that we are disciples of Jesus Christ. Which means that whoever is not fruitful cannot claim to be a disciple of Jesus Christ. Now, because only those who are true disciples of Jesus Christ can bear fruit that glorify God. This is what we read in verse 5. When Jesus said, he who abides in me and I in him will bear much fruit. Because I am the vine and you are the branches. If a branch is not attached to the vine, it cannot bear much fruit. So indeed, no one can actually give genuine glory to God if he is not in Jesus Christ. If he is not attached, consecrated to Jesus Christ. In other words, one cannot be fruitful if he is not in Jesus Christ. It's only in being in Jesus Christ that we may be able to be fruitful. So only those who are in Jesus Christ are able to actually be fruitful in all the areas of their lives, in all the aspects of their lives. And when we talk of being fruitful, when we talk of bearing fruit, we mean, of course, bearing good fruit. Good fruit. You see, there are trees that bear good fruit, and there are trees that don't bear good fruits. But you who are attached to Jesus Christ, you who are deeply rooted in Jesus Christ, you may only bear good fruit, of course. Because, you see, there are people who are like those bad trees which produce bad fruit. There are people who produce bad fruit. Those ones, we cannot say that they are fruitful. We cannot say that those people are fruitful. No, because what they produce is useless. The bad fruit that they produce only helps us prove that they are not at all in Jesus Christ. Remember what God said. It's Jesus himself even who said it. You will know them by their fruits. This is what Jesus said. You will know them by their fruits. So those who produce bad fruits are not genuine children of God. They are not in Jesus Christ. They are not disciples of Jesus Christ. So they are not fruitful. In one word, that's what it means. They are not fruitful. But those who produce good fruits are in Jesus Christ. Those who produce good fruit are children of God. They manifest the glory of God. They glorify God. So those who produce good fruit are in Jesus Christ, while those who produce bad fruit are not in Jesus Christ. So anyone who wants to obey God's command and produce good fruits is bound to remaining deeply rooted in Jesus Christ. This is what Jesus said. If you abide in me, let's read it again. That John chapter 15, verse 5. I am the vine, you are the branches. He who abides in me and I in him bears much fruit. For without me, you can do nothing. So the requirement, the main requirement for you to produce good fruit, the main requirement for you to actually be fruitful is to abide in Jesus Christ. Because Jesus Christ is the vine and you are the branch. If the branch is not attached to the vine, if we cut off that branch from the vine, it cannot bear fruit, no matter how the branch is. It may be big, small, it may be nice to see, but if it is not attached to the vine, it will never, never bear any fruit. It's the same with you. To be fruitful, to bear fruit, you have to be attached to Jesus Christ. You have to abide in Jesus Christ and let Jesus Christ abide in you, which means that you have to be deeply rooted in Jesus Christ. It's only in that way that you'll be able to bear fruit, to be fruitful. And when you bear much fruit, when you bear much fruit, God is glorified. The glory of God shows up when you bear much fruit, when you are fruitful, because you have obeyed the command of God. You know that obedience is one gives glory to God. Obedience is one shows that we actually seek God's glory. And we want God's glory to be seen, to manifest itself. God's command is clear. Be fruitful. And when you obey that command to be fruitful, you are glorifying God. You are glorifying your Father. You are glorifying the great I am. Dear brethren, we're going to stop here today, but we have not finished with our teaching. God commands you to be fruitful. We will continue with this same topic on Wednesday, the 20th of September 2023. God bless you abundantly beyond all your expectations, and have a very wonderful week.